My name is Behjet Abdulla, and I'm the Managing Director and founder of a company called TodMorden Foods. We're a contract catering company and specialise in delivering food to schools that don't have canteens or any facilities on site, and we're based in Park Royal in Ealing. It was quite a strange coincidence, but I managed to see an opportunity where a school needed catering services, and because I have a sales background, and I was in business anyway, I sort of managed to close a deal with this one small school, and then that was like in 2017. So fast forward to now, we're now at like 13 schools and 28 staff. So it's grown every single year through some hard work, but yeah, it's been a long journey. So the food we provide, everything is made fresh on the day, and I would say the USP is that we are able to deliver what you'd expect in a kitchen, from a kitchen within a school, but delivered in. And rather than having like a meal box per student, we kind of set up a canteen counter space for children. So I think it's a really kind of unique thing we're doing, because not many people deliver food in that way. It tends to be like an individual meal box per kid, and that's it. But we kind of bring a canteen exciting experience to children, and we really see that during the lunch service. So the menu of our business is obviously been a long work in progress, and it's never ending. We kind of make the menu ourselves based on a couple of things: seasonal ingredients and government guidelines on what's healthy for children. But more recently, we've started working with a paediatric dietitian to help us make the menu, and it actually helps us look a bit good as well, that some expertise has gone into the planning of the menu. So we kind of like do a variety of cuisines. It could be like pasta bolognese one day, or a curry or a noodle dish the next day. And we kind of do fun things like pizza on a Friday. So we kind of try and make it as much, with as much variety as possible. And the kids really enjoy that. We've used many different suppliers over the years. The most high quality suppliers we use are people within the nighttime markets in London. So you've got meat markets, fruit and vegetable markets, and these actually are further up a supply chain level. So when you buy these ingredients, you normally go from like a supplier, as it were, but going to the markets directly, you kind of get cheaper deals, and it's better quality because they get it straight from importers or straight from slaughterhouses when it comes to meat. Yes, so dietary preferences is a very important thing for what we do. Actually, all of the meat on our menu is halal, and we kind of offer everything from vegan dishes to gluten-free dishes, because in schools they take allergies very seriously, and we have to make sure that we make the right meals for kids that have those needs. Nuts and seeds is obviously the most high-risk thing in a kitchen that you can work with. So we have a nut and seed-free kitchen. So no peanuts, no tree nuts, no sesame whatsoever in all of our ingredients, which actually helps us focus on doing a better job, because if you do include these ingredients, you have to like have this massive task of making sure they don't get contaminated or end up in the wrong place. So it's just much easier to just remove those ingredients from your process. Replacing ingredients like that is a good approach to giving people more choice and variety. There are plenty of things you can use to in place of those things like nuts, but I find that with children especially, it's better to keep it quite simple and traditional things, traditional ingredients used. So we kind of just stick with classic dishes. My life's journey. I mean, it's hard to describe. That might fit something interesting for everyone, because everyone's journey is quite different. But I would say in comparison to like the rest of the world, let's just say, I would say I've had quite a good life. I've come from a loving home. But from my own perspective, my own sort of subjective experiences, I would say I've had quite a turbulent ride. I've had many jobs over the years, trying to find my place in what I should be doing, how to fulfill myself and purpose. I'm not quite there yet, even as a business owner, which gives me sort of a bit more freedom, a bit more of a way to find my goals in life. It's a very hard question to answer about my journey, but It's been tough at times, and it's always a never-ending sort of self-improvement, self-care way of looking at life, and that's what I'm really trying to do every single day. My go-to places. Well, I'm from West London. I've been born here, and I've been to school here, and obviously I operate here in my business. I would say that I go to Ealing. I mean, either passing through Ealing most days, or just kind of hanging out there with my partner or my kids. So I do love Ealing a lot. I do really plan to move there in the near future. Pick-me-ups, kind of, you might catch me getting a coffee or something in Ealing, or doing some shopping to kind of feel a bit good about myself. I think when we look back, like on our younger selves, it's hard to really figure out what we would or could change, because sometimes we're meant to go through difficult things to make us see a better life. But the one thing, if I had to choose, is to kind of align your thoughts, your emotions, and your spoken words in everyday life as much as possible, rather than thinking something and doing something else. And that might not apply to everyone, but for me, thinking a certain way but behaving a certain way that might be at conflict with that was putting a big conflict within myself. So I want to try and align my thoughts, my spoken words, and my actions as much as possible. That's one thing I really didn't figure out well into my 30s, which I could have done with realizing how important that was in my 20s. That's how we present ourselves to other people is obviously really important, and to be our true selves all the time might not be appropriate or necessarily the right thing to do. But I would say it's quite hard to determine how often I do it, but when I was working full time and sort of subject to a lot more, I don't want to use the word authority, but kind of like behavior expectations, let's just say, I was a bit less myself. But now as a business owner, I do act a bit more freely, slightly more radical, if I'm honest, which not everyone may like. So I find myself wearing a mask a lot less compared to, say, 10 years ago, because, again, this goes to kind of subjective ways of looking at life. For me personally, I need to be my true self wherever I am. If I'm not wearing my heart on my sleeve, it's kind of putting a conflict in myself. And that's, even though it's quite scary at first to do that, and not everyone likes it, for me anyway, it's benefited me to be that way. But you might need to tone it down. I might need to tone it down sometimes, basically. I think you have to know your audience, especially in business or in any kind of work situation, whether you're facing colleagues or a customer or something different. So it's just about knowing your audience, and sometimes if we do talk out of turn or a bit inappropriately, sometimes we do need to kind of get that feedback and that response that isn't really well received to adjust ourselves for the next time. So I'm quite into going through negative experiences, which means I don't really hold back that much. It's being a parent is obviously very difficult. Whenever you first have a child, for me anyway, it was huge amounts of sleep deprivation and lots of kind of like attention and everything along those lines, which every parent understands without a doubt. I was a single parent for some time as well, so I was raising my kids on my own until I met my current partner. It's been a very long journey. I've gone from a very sort of free spirit party animal to someone who's had children, where you have to then stop that kind of lifestyle and stop those kind of priorities, and they have to shift. And I would say, compared to other parents I've seen, it took me a while for those priorities to shift, to turn more selfless. But it's been a really incredible journey, and despite the stress and challenges of having children, it's one of the best things I've done in my life, without a doubt. And I cherish every moment with them now, which is amazing. Upbringing is obviously one of the most important things when you're raising a child, and how you kind of communicate with them, how you love them. There were many great things about my family, which I definitely will be kind of continuing on with how I raise my children. But I think we can always do better, and not every family is perfect, including myself. So I think it's just about doing better things with the upbringing of your children compared to how when you were brought up. So yeah, I will take a lot of positive things from my family, and hopefully some new things that might apply to today's world. So I do find that really important. Social media, cell phones, everything along those lines. I think the age of children getting these devices is becoming younger and younger. So, I mean, I had my first mobile phone, I think, when I was 15 or 16. My oldest son, who is 8, he has a mobile phone, but he doesn't have a SIM card. He just plays games on an offline phone. But I am probably going to get him a SIM card soon. He has a YouTube channel already, and he posts videos on there. Nothing too crazy, just screenshots and clips of games. So I think if a child, even at a young age, is really into technology and into doing stuff like YouTube channels, we should probably let them do it, with maybe some supervision. Mental health problems. Yeah, I would say I've had quite a few issues over the years. Lots of different things, mainly to do with lifestyle, your own sense of insecurities that you have to kind of face at some point, as well as things like sexuality and knowing your place in the world. And I think how these might have manifested themselves, they come in different forms. I mean, some you might become passive or just want to kind of hide away from them. Some you might want to cope with things like alcohol use and whatnot. So I would say I've been through a few different stages of how I deal with my mental health. And one of the most important things I've learned probably is kind of to talk to people and get support from people closest to you that you trust, as well as organizations like mine. I think now in this stage of my life is exercise, like through and through. I do normally visit the gym every single day, and it really makes me feel focused and happy, energized, and all that stuff. It's really important to me. I think without exercise, I probably would not feel as good as I do day in, day out, despite having all the stress and pressures of my business. I prioritize it above lots of things to go to the gym and just feel good. And I really think that it doesn't matter what you do for exercise, as long as you get your blood moving and your brain working through exercise, it's really useful and beneficial. And it changed my life. So I couldn't recommend that enough to other people. I think with routines, especially if you own a business, it can be quite hard because sometimes really critical, important things come up and I have no choice but to be involved with that situation. But I think if you have a priority, I have more of a priority structure. So it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing, I'll always find time to exercise, especially if I start feeling, let's just say, emotionally negative in any way. I will make sure I either go for a swim or go for a walk or something to get my blood moving. And that helps me. In the past, I have had therapy with a few different professionals over the years. One in particular, who I didn't know, I just found him online. He specialized in trauma and other things. And yeah, he really managed to make me understand my brain and how the brain works in relation to mental health and in relation to habits. So that was definitely someone who I really admired, and I thought that changed my life, seeing this person for a period of time. They're no longer in the country, but it really did have a positive effect on how I see myself and my thinking, stepping outside of my brain and looking at myself and what's happening in there, if that makes sense. That's quite hard for me to answer. I definitely have explored both, and I still am to largely. But I think the former, understanding your deeper inner self, is probably beneficial. But that might take more work and more harder lessons to learn, rather than finding a coping mechanism, be it alcohol, be it exercise, be it shopping, or any other behavior. So for me, it's like a never-ending journey of self-care. And at the beginning of this journey, it was quite daunting because it is hard work and it's not easy, especially if you do feel that you suffer in any way. But we have to work. Everything that needs to become better in our lives is only done through hard work and perseverance. And that can be anything from your vocation or career to how you're a parent, to how you manage your money, to how you look after your physical body or your diet and your mental health. So everything is just hard work and effort, really, and it's never ending. I get triggered by lots of different things. One of the biggest triggers for me is music, electronic music. I'm very much into making electronic music. It's one of the biggest passions of my life, and I've always done it as a hobby from a very young age, and I still do now. Music like that is synonymous with going out and partying. So there is quite a trigger there because music makes me feel good. Another is possibly like restaurants and places to eat, because I do associate nice food with nice wines, and that can potentially lead to overconsumption of alcohol. And I try not to avoid these places or things completely, because I don't want to limit myself from things that I like, but it's something I'm just weary of, to overindulge, let's just say. When it comes to helping my kids grow and help them learn from their experiences, I do feel that I have quite a, let's just say, non-traditional approach. I'm quite honest with them. I think in many ways they're ready to be exposed to certain things, not like ridiculously sensitive things, but I try and be honest about them. What I'm trying to say is I don't sugarcoat things. I'm maybe in some ways, in some eyes, I guess, brutally honest with them about stuff, but I can see how honest I am with them about reality and life. The good and the bad things, it has to come in small stages. They're not ready to fully understand certain things, but definitely my older son is becoming way more mature, and if he has questions about certain areas of life, I will try my best to be as honest as possible with him about that. When you start a business, normally in the very early stages, if you have like money coming in and you have like a small amount of customers, it's quite straightforward and easy. You don't need that many people to employ and that kind of thing. But when it gets a bit bigger and you need to employ more people and your costs go up, depending on the nature of your business, obviously, it can get much harder. And it was at that point, which is kind of the point I'm still at in my journey as a business, it does get very lonely. You don't have much support, and that can definitely make you feel isolated, and it will eventually affect your like performance and decision making. It still is quite lonely for me, actually, because we're kind of in that stage of growing a bit more before it becomes easy again. So I don't know if I have any kind of good way to cope with the isolation at the moment. The only thing I'm trying to focus on is making good decisions and supporting my team when they need me, and I feel we do quite a good job of taking care of our employees and making sure the customers are happy, so the business is safe, the business is getting income, and we're just going to keep pushing on from there, because it is a very tough market that we're in. It's very physical driven. We work with schools, so our deadlines are very tight. We can't afford to be late with deliveries of lunches. We're talking like 100 kids of a school just sitting around waiting for lunch. So if you're late, it causes a big issue. The cost of food is very expensive. The cost of energy is very expensive. So all these things that I'm managing as a business owner, there's not much help for me. There's no one above me to help me, and that is what makes me feel quite lonely sometimes. The team that we have within the business, they obviously are very important to make sure that we become successful and consistent with that. Because we're not a big company, we don't have some massive well-being focus like a HR department with an area that specialises in this. We do take a very delicate approach, to be honest, and we do know that people have their own problems. One thing as a business owner and as a leader that I make sure that I do, I never bring my own stresses and problems into the business. So no matter how tough it might be where I'm at, I don't filter that down into the team. I try and make it a relaxed environment as much as possible. We don't have anything in place officially, but one thing that we always do is if people need time off in general for any reason, we let them do that, whether it's a personal affair or if they just say we're not coming in today, we don't really question it. We don't really ask for anything in return. We just let them take a day off basically, and there's no guilt like in other places that I've worked in the past where you feel guilty for calling in sick. Even if you are genuinely sick, you find yourself going into work a lot of the time. I'm quite happy with that sort of environment we provided for the team. I think there's probably many different ways they can approach dealing with mental health or improving mental health. But for me personally, if I had to recommend anything to anyone, it would be to start some form of exercise. That would be the number one thing for me, because that will affect the body in a good way, and it might give you some clarity on what to do next.